Good morning and welcome to the Laws of Love. You know, every time I say that word love, especially now, all I want to do is go like this and just hug myself because I don't have a lot of interaction physically. So I just love doing that. So I just want to tell you that. Anyhow, I am Rochelle Schwartz and I teach emotional education. And I have had the honor of being on the Oprah Winfrey Show and also coaching for over 20 years. And I have a very, very, very special guest today. I adore her. I love her. I love what she stands for, who she's being. And we're going to get to her, and that's Ramola Hodus. And she has fascinating stories. I think we could take up 5 hours, but we can't. Anyhow, I have some beautiful quotes that I want to share with you. And the first quote is, sometimes adversity is what you need to face in order to become successful. Boy, isn't that the truth? Otherwise, how the hell are we going to learn? You know, while everything's going smoothly? No, it's always through adversity. The next one that I just love, and that says, the greater your storm, the brighter your rainbow. You know, that's really powerful as well, to know at the end of any adversity, any struggle, anything, there's always a rainbow. And that really resonated with me tremendously. And the next one is, and I love this, obstacles are put in your way to see if what you want is really worth fighting for. And you know what? I see obstacles like you're going bowling, and the pins that stay up are the ones that are worth fighting for, and the rest just go by the wayside. Isn't that a great visual? Just got it now. I thought that's so brilliant. Anyhow, I am honored and excited to introduce Ramola Hodus, who is, as I said at the beginning, a very dear friend. I adore her. I love her. I love her presence, her beingness, her honesty. And we're going to talk about her book. You want to pull up the book, Ramola? And that's Princess of 42nd Street, The Princess of 42nd Street. That's a wow. That is a wow. So thank you for coming today.
Sure.
And I'm excited to just ask you some questions. And I know, like I said, we can go on and on. But the thing that comes and stands out to me, you've had so much adversity in your childhood growing up. And I know that you've had 2 kidnapping attempts. And briefly, just very briefly, just give some pieces of what that experience was for you and the trauma that it was for you. Could you do that in a few seconds? I know it could be longer, but.
Because my father was who he was, in the beginning, the mafia was having issues with him. And when I was 12, walking to school, I saw that there was a black limo behind me, and the door opens, and there's 2 men in black suits, and they're holding out like a Chatty Cathy doll. Your mother told us to pick you up. And I'm like, she wouldn't do that. And I don't play with baby dolls. I was angry. And long story short, I just kept walking, and they eventually left. And then when I was in camp, I walked up to my bunk, which was a long building, and there were steps inside to go up. And then I turned left, and at the end of the corridor, there was a door, and there was a man who was similar to that other man, and I kind of saw him looking at me, and to tell you the truth, I kind of screamed and fainted, and people came and got me and called my parents, and that was that. And there were things like that a lot in my childhood. Lots of
Wow.
things.
Wow. And I'm sure, how old were you?
Both times I was 12.
Wow. That's traumatic.
Yeah, but
It,
you kind of get you know, it was like you get used to it, and that was the problem. You get used to trauma.
well, because of the atmosphere that you were in.
Right.
That really made it what it was. And that your parents, both your parents, had orgies. They had a lot of drugs going on in the house. And
With us kids home.
What?
With us kids home.
With you home. And how many kids were there?
I was the oldest of 4.
Wow. So did you take on that mother type to protect them, your siblings?
Yeah. Since I was about 5, because my mother was kind of bipolar and personality disorder, and frightening at times, just really frightening. And, you know, when she would go to want to beat me or the kids for the slightest thing, I would say, you're not going to touch any of these kids or me because you don't hit people. And she'd look at me, you know, I'm 5, 6 years old.
Wow.
And had some pretty bad physical fights with my mother since I was 5, 6 years old.
Wow. So, leading up to all of that adversity going on, how did you stay centered, grounded, get through it?
Ever since I was young, somehow I just said, you're going to be Ramola Hodus once, and you have a long life, and you need to figure out how to be happy. That was the main voice that was in my head since I was a kid. So I did things my whole life, which I still do now. The very first thing was I learned to talk kindly to myself. I remember walking in the street and my shoelace was untied, and I'm like, you stupid imbecile, you can't. And I was like, that's your father. You know, and I started to watch how I was talking to myself and learned to stop, to be kind. And then I learned to get mentors to help me learn how to think properly. And then one of the biggest gifts was learning to forgive my mother and father. For me.
How did you do that?
Because I knew, and I suppose through therapy and reading, hearing, you forgive for you. Because I used to have dreams of pushing my parents off a cliff in a carriage. I had a lot of anger. I didn't want that anger anymore. So I started to learn about my parents as people, what they went through in their childhoods. And I kind of removed myself in a way as a daughter, kind of, and just tried to look at them as people that were damaged and messed up. I also learned to figure out what it means to have courage and go through your fears, not to stay on your knees too long when life gets you down. I also learned that it's your attitude that really helps you get through in life. And I also learned that you better learn how to deal with loneliness, especially as a woman. You know, the things that we can do when we're lonely that are not healthy for you because you just don't know how to be alone with yourself. And
so let's go into that. What would you advise somebody about that, being lonely and being alone?
Okay, so what I found out was in being a caretaker, I learned to take care of other people more than me. And I had to learn how to do that. How? Figure out what, you know, I need. When I was living in New York, there was something called meetups. And I would go out and find something to do with yourself. I would have work that I loved. And being home, I learned to moderate my drinking because I never was an alcoholic, but I would just drink in the nighttime to get myself somewhere else. And I was like, 7 days a week? I don't think so. And so 17 years ago, maybe 18 years ago, I found moderation management and I became a leader and I started coaching people. And I really, really love doing it because teaching people how to moderate their drinking is life-saving. So I don't deal with alcoholics because there's many more problem drinkers than there are alcoholics. So, finding work that you like, finding people, I had a lot of friends that were not good friends. I had to let go of friends. I was alone for a while to learn to bring in people that made me feel good about myself. That was really helpful,
What is the difference between an alcoholic and someone who moderately drinks? What is the difference?
Well, there's a very big difference. Alcoholics cannot have a drink without going just off. Alcoholics ruin their lives with drinking. I wasn't. I mean, sometimes I'd wake up tired with a hangover, but I didn't have to wake up and have a drink, so I wasn't shaking. I wasn't thinking about drinking all day long. Alcoholics will drink anything that they can get their hands on. It doesn't have to be something they like. There is actually a questionnaire on Moderation Management website that helps you see if you're a problem drinker or an alcoholic.
Interesting. I didn't know that there was a difference.
Oh, yeah. A lot of people don't, but there is.
Wow. But do you feel that when people drink more excessively and are not alcoholics, but there is some issue going on in their home, that what you would do would support them and helping them?
That was mainly why a lot of people were drinking, what was going on in their home, and having to teach them, do you want to deal with this or choose something else? And while you're there, what are other things that you can do to break the habit loop? And if somebody is drinking 7 days a week, a bottle of wine, you drink 7 days a week and you drink 3/4 of a bottle of wine for a month. Then you drink, there's certain tools that you can do to get, slowly. You have to do it very slowly. And it's not for the weak-hearted learning how to do this. It's much easier to be abstinent than teach yourself that when you're at a bar and you're at, your second martini and that's it.
Right.
Stop and drink water, and then going through all the psychological stuff. I want another one,
Right.
And it's challenging, but it's way worth it because your life is just so much better when you're feeling better about yourself.
Oh yeah, especially I think at these times. I believe there are a lot more people drinking.
There are a lot more people drinking now.
Yeah, totally.
Yes.
And I think maybe out of sheer boredom.
Yeah. Right.
And then financially and everything else that goes with it.
And when there are these times, because like when I was writing my book, it was really hard. People would say to me, oh, it must have been cathartic. It was one of the hardest things I did, going through all of that over and over and over again. And I was drinking more than I wanted to. And I said, Ramola, you're going to be fine. This is a rough time. Once this is over, and I knew that it was a rough time, and it wasn't like I was getting drunk.
Right.
I was drinking every night. I don't like to drink every night, but it was just so. I tell people, if you're in one of those spaces where you're drinking more than you want to because of circumstances, just know when the circumstance is over that you're going to get right back on the horse. You have to. I mean, it's wisest to tell yourself that.
Yeah. When you finished your book, did you get something else from it that you never had anticipated as going through your life?
Yes.
What was it?
Writing this book helped me see how awful and difficult my life was. I really didn't know, because when you're I had no clue. When therapists used to say to me, do you understand what you've gone through? I'm like, oh yeah, I know what I went through, but I really never knew that I had post-traumatic stress. that for a while I was a rageaholic because I'd be fighting with my parents. Don't do drugs in the house. Don't you touch that person. Don't, blah, blah,
Mm.
so there was a lot of things that's the thing that I realized that, how hard of a childhood I had, how crazy my parents were, and how determined I've always been to get healthy and happy.
And did it affect your siblings?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It has. And by you going through this processes, has it helped them?
No,
It hasn't.
because my one of my sisters and my brothers, they
Yeah.
couldn't do what I do. They wouldn't. They didn't have it in them. They didn't want to try. They didn't know. And they, got very, very involved in drugs. Really, really involved in drugs. And it affected their life immensely. Learning how to be kind to yourself, find mentors, find your courage. This, it takes effort and it takes persistence, and you don't give up. And some people just don't have it.
Yep.
When I was younger, I would be like, come on, but I realized as I got older, some people just can't do it, and you have to respect that, and you have to love them, and you have to be there. And if they learn, many times they were kind of angry at me and jealous of me because of my strength. And that was hard for me. I don't want to hurt, but I said, I'm not doing this on purpose. I want to be happy. You could do it too. But again, not everybody has, that's one thing that I got from my father. I got a bull in me.
Ah.
Yeah.
So you got some good qualities.
Yeah. I got some good qualities. Being an entrepreneur, knowing that being an entrepreneur, you're going to take risks, and sometimes you're going to make money and sometimes you're going to lose money.
Mm-hmm.
I learned that from my father. I learned that you just don't stop if you want something. I learned that from him.
Mm-hmm.
I also kind of became a rageaholic because of him, but I'm working on that. And from my mother was like a hippie. She was like,
Oh, I can see that in you.
yeah. My mother was like, that Harper Valley PTA lady. She'd come to school with like crocheted mini skirts and boots up to her, knees. And I'd be like, uh-oh. And my friends would be like, wow. And I'd be like, uh-oh, and she was an artist.
Ah.
I have her artwork in the house. She was a genius also. My mother was a genius.
Wow.
But she was, really, really frightening at times.
Wow. So when your father obviously has passed, did you make peace with him? Forgiveness with him?
Yeah.
And what did you do in that process with him?
I just loved him. I loved him for who he was, the bastard that he was. I loved him. And I loved my mother too, because that's what you do. They're not out there to harm you.
No.
They don't know any better. My father did not know, when I watch President Trump on TV, I'm like, Marty, they don't know what they're doing, and they don't want to hear that they're doing anything wrong. And, I understood my father. And, I think I understood my father more than I understood my mother. I mean, I saw what my mother was about, but I didn't understand her because she was just so crazy.
Yeah.
It was like really weird. Sometimes she'd be like a woman from England, the way she was talking. And she was really, it was like, whoa. Okay.
Yeah.
My father was just, a narcissist and a bit psychotic and whatever. But really, I just loved my parents. They did the best that they could in the insanity. My father had a brutal childhood, and so did my mother.
Usually that's what happens. Yeah. And that's the wounded pieces of them that have never been obviously healed.
Right.
But did you verbally say anything to them in forgiving them, or you just in your own way forgave them without having to say anything to them?
No, I never verbally did, but my father could see how much I adored him, even though I fought with him fierce. And, I also knew, because I had a business in the natural food industry. I sold many wonderful things to the natural food industry. And I was also a holistic practitioner for a while. And I was into herbs and whatnot. And his second wife was like, I don't even want to get into her. But my father used to say to me, when are you going to get a real job? And I used to just, and I remember going into his, like 20 years ago, going into his cabinet and seeing all the herbs and vitamins. I told
That's so
him,
funny.
okay, Marty, okay.
So through all of this adversity, how did you learn to be yourself? What were some things that you can share with others? How did you become you? What did you do besides all the things? And I got it, but what are the things?
I'll tell you, I knew that the main voice in my head was my father's. I knew that. And I used to tell my sister that, but and I remember going to therapists and they would have me, who is that person in there? Do you remember the Tasmanian devil from the cartoon Bugs Bunny? Anyway, I felt like my father was the Tasmanian devil in me. And I once had a therapist say, stand up and vomit him out. Just vomit him out. And that really helped me. And then I remember also, I used to do a lot of guided visualizations and meditations. And one really great meditation and visualization that I did was I pictured myself in my mother's womb. And I pictured, who are you in there? You're a loving, kind, strong, that's who you are. I had to let go of all of the voices that might be, you're no good, you're fat, how do you go out of the house, you're an imbecile. I had to get that all out. And I had to say, how do you talk to yourself, Ramola? How do you want to talk to yourself? And I figured that out. And like right now through COVID,
Yes.
this is hard. And I'm like doing the best to be easy on myself through this. I'm not used to not going out and doing, and and it's all the way that you talk to yourself, whether you're going to go nuts or whether you're going to say, hey, easy girl, easy. Go find something to cook. Go garden. Don't be on your case. Don't do it. It's not necessary. So I learned a lot from my childhood, how to be in my adulthood with going through, what happened with my publisher, what happened with my PR what happened with all the obstacles that happened, writing this book through what I taught myself and others when I was a child. I got through the heartache and the disappointment and the betrayal. You're down on your knees for a bit and you're like, okay, that's enough. Let's go.
Mm-hmm.
It's the way that I want to be on this earth plane happy. I don't want to be miserable. I don't want to be picking on myself. I don't want to feel bad about myself. I don't want to do it. So you have to, that's what I would tell my clients. You have to really, 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 really want to be happy. And if you really, 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 really want to be happy, you do the things that need to be done and you don't give up on yourself. But it's amazing how many people do. And
Yes.
I've learned to go, God bless them. Nothing I can do about it. I can't get inside them to,
Nope.
I tried.
I know.
Until you learn. You
Yep.
know what it's like being a coach.
Yep.
Let's go. And it's like, if they're not going to do it, they're not going to do it. And you have to love them anyway.
So what would you tell, what you know now, what would you tell your 18-year-old?
I'm very proud of you. I'm really proud of you for figuring it all out and never stopping. That's what I would tell my 18-year-old, and maybe not to drink so much.
That's really cool. That's cool. And in your practices to help you with, because every day I am sure is not the most wonderful. I would imagine there are challenges that happen.
Sure.
And so keeping your attitude up to have the best life, is there something that you would tell me?
Yeah, I would say one of the most important things is be aware of when you're starting to go down. Be aware of when you're being so affected in life and you're starting to get a little depressed, because sometimes it could sneak right up behind you. You know, that happened to me during this COVID time. I was like, oh my God, I think you're depressed. Let's
Mm-hmm.
go. Let's figure out, what are you going to do? You know what? You're going to garden. Let's figure out once a week we're going to cook something. You know, my 30-year-old niece has moved in with me because of COVID, and I don't mind, but it's like this 30-year-old kid. What is going to happen with her life now? You know, so you think,
Yeah.
so that's what I would say. Start to see when you're when you're losing it, so you can go, okay, what are we going to do to get it back?
Mm-hmm.
Be aware of that little thing, that thing that happens when you wake up and you go, oh my God, I've been depressed for a month.
Yes.
You know,
True. It is true.
right.
But the other thing I think that also can help is if you pick up a phone and you call somebody. You
Absolutely.
know what I'm saying?
Yes. Yes. I mean, how often do we do that?
Yeah.
You know, it's
Yeah.
very, very good. You know, not holding it in is very, very important.
Yeah.
And having friends that you trust enough to let all the laundry out.
Yep.
Yeah, that's very important too.
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I think also, I don't know if your experience, I think you have, I think you had mentioned it, that you start to really, it's almost like you see so clearly that there are people that perhaps would come into your life and it's like, I can't do it.
Oh yeah.
I can't do it. I got to
Oh
let
yeah.
it go, right?
Yes.
And
Yeah.
does the circle become smaller and smaller and smaller?
Can. I mean, I'm very fortunate. I have like a handful of very, very good friends. Well, I guess it's smaller than when you were in school. That's for
Well,
sure.
yeah, I'm talking about like, I always remember my mom saying, if you come through this life on one hand with those people, you're very lucky.
Yeah.
And it, of course, as a kid, I didn't believe it, but it is true,
Right.
at least in my estimation.
Right. I
Really
mean,
is true.
the thing that got me through when in 2009, when my world fell apart, and I mean, I felt like Humpty Dumpty, not knowing how to be put back to. It was awful. I would go outside and I'd go, oh no, 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 no. I think I became agoraphobic for a while, and the thing that helped me was having friends, good
Yeah,
friends.
yeah, absolutely. So, on that note, we have 1 minute. So, what would be your law of love for you and everybody else that you want to share?
Just really be kind. Be kind to yourself. Watch the way that you talk to yourself. Watch the people that come into your life, that you let in your life. You know, just really be good to yourself and figure out what that means to you.
Yeah, because it means so many different things to so many
Right.
people
Right.
by being kind. And I think the first thing also is doing things that make you happy, like you said. Just
Right.
doing things that make you happy. If it's
Right.
cooking, if it's dancing, if it's exercise,
Right.
if it's picking up a phone.
Right. And sometimes you have to push. You have
Yes.
to push yourself because you just want to sit on the couch and watch Netflix.
Yep.
Yeah.
Been there.
Yeah. Me too.
And sometimes that's good too. It's not making
Yes.
you wrong. You don't
Yeah,
want
but
to
I'm saying if you're doing it
excessively.
5 days, 6 days, it's like, okay, you recharged your battery, you zoned out, let's go.
Correct. So, what can I say? It's been so great talking to you like this and having people get to know Ramola Hodus and how fabulous this book is and that it will be on Netflix.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, Ron Howard's doing a documentary, and I'm going to be in the second season um, on Netflix.
and so you have to let everybody know. when that's going to be when it comes
I
out.
will let you know.
And what can I say? I'm honored and I feel such gratitude and so many blessings for you.
Thank you.
And to say that I'm grateful and say that you're my friend.
You're my friend too.
So I love you and I thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having me.
I just, it's ecstatic. I love this conversation. I love it. So thank you again. And if you could stay for the networking, I don't know if you can. If you
Of course
can,
I can.
then I think Blanca will send you the link, Blanca, correct? Yes? We can't hear you, babe.
We're going to conclude the webcast and I'll email you the link. Thanks everyone for watching The Laws of Love.